Hey, Ori. I was just sending you a message. Um, I just sent a message to Jenny through Messenger. I also tagged her in one of the teasers you posted. Um, I don't know if she's gonna be here or not, so we'll play that one by ear. This is my lemonade tonight. It's about half lemonade, and this is all I poured. Actually, I poured about that much lemonade. The rest of it is vodka and grenadine. Whew. Now I was going to ask her if the chapters that I was reading was okay with her, but she never did get back with me. So I'm making up my own mind. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I need some. I'm just, my head's trying to hurt. There she is. She is here. Yay, Jenny. We were just talking about you. I was just telling, hey, Pebbles. I was just telling Ori, aka Nina, that I had messaged you and tagged you to see if you were going to be here tonight. So, yay! Oh, Pebbles. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That group chat about wore me out today, girlfriend. Okay, no problem. I was just making sure. Question. Um, I've read up to like chapter 7, 8, somewhere in there. And do you have a problem with me reading chapters? What did I tell you, Nina? 7, 9, and 11? Yeah, 7, 9, and 11. Miss Jenny. It's the detour. Alice's second time. And the great, 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 great caterpillar. I know, right? That's the reason I wanted to read them. They won't really give away any of the story. You still have to read the whole book to get to piece those together. But those are like taking some scenes out and just putting them together. But they kind of all flow together. I want to skip chapters 8 and 10 because those have to do with Charles. And since I'm not reading the whole book, I didn't want to just waste the time with those since I'm limited on time. So I just wanted to make sure you were okay with those chapters. This is one of those nights, ladies, that you're going to need your hot flash kits. So I got mine. That's about all I got tonight. And I'm wrapped up in a blanket, so maybe I can warm myself up with this tonight. I don't have my toy in here with me. Nina, you got your vibrator with you? Pebbles, you got yours? Jenny, we have a thing that we call hot flash kits, and that includes your vibrator, drink of your choice, a fan if you need it. And I've always got things around here on my desk I can use as a fan. Water bottle if you need it, like a spray bottle. Oh, large ice, Ori. Where are you gonna put the ice? And oh, sister, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, baby. Well, also, too, where's Vincy? Nina, can you message Vincy right quick? Find out where she's at. There's going to be lots of voices in this tonight. So, oh, maybe. I've got all kinds of voices going on tonight, so that's another reason I wanted to choose these 3 chapters, is because it stretches my voice box. Not this one, but my array of voices, and sometimes they need to be stretched out a little bit. Oh, I know it. I just kind of hid. I haven't read that chapter, but I just kind of glazed over it to see if it was going to be something that would be interesting. But the chapter by itself, it wouldn't take me 15 minutes to read it, if that much. So I need to get enough chapters together. So, oh crap, I got to get to the cover. Where's LaSasha at? She should be here. She's the one that started all this mess, isn't she? Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's called Naughty Alice by Jennifer Johnson. It's one of the LaSasha Flames Torrid Tales fairy tales retold. So there's the cover. I got to get a new screen protector for this. So, all righty. So there she is. Yay. Vincy, I got some voices for you tonight, sister. So be ready. So just as a little the reason I'm reading chapter 7, 9, and 11, and the chapters 8 and 10 are back in reality. Alice is in a mental institute, and Wonderland is where her schizophrenic mind goes. So, in reality, she has a caretaker named Charles who's fallen in love with her, supposedly. So, and he writes books for her to read. And she's just recently turned 18. So, right now, the books that the chapters I'm going to read take place in Wonderland. And she is with the Red Fairy, the Ace of Spades, who is her love interest, I suppose. He took her virginity earlier on in the book. So we'll call him her love interest. And yes, he is an Ace of Spades. He's a card with a face and a dick and legs and stuff. So, and the Red Fairy and the Red Fairy had a scene earlier that you'll have to read about if you want to see it. But the Red Fairy's in love with, let's put it this way. Everybody's in love with Alice in Wonderland. All the men are in love with Alice. All the women want to be Alice. And all the women in Wonderland are in love with the Ace of Spades. Is that a good way to put it? So there's lots of jealousy here, and the Red Fairy is jealous of Alice. The Queen of Hearts is jealous of Alice. So the Red Fairy and the Ace of Spades are trying to get Alice back to the party given by the queen. And chapter 7 is the detour. So they have detoured since they've started this. So, where are we going? The red fairy complained yet again. You complain more than any fairy I've ever met, Ace grumbled back. I know where we're going, Alice cried with glee. We're going to see the Mad Hatter. I do hope it's time for tea. She skipped ahead of Ace that she knew now that she knew the way. Alice was perfectly beautiful to him as she blissfully made her way down the path. Charles loved the way her hair blew in the slight wind, and he found himself wishing that Alice's dress was tighter. Charles is her caretaker in her hospital. It was fitted at the top but flared out a bit around her hips, hiding all the good stuff from his view. He loved her ass the best, and he longed to grab it in his hands as he had before. He followed, imagining what her ass would look like if he flipped up her dress. I think that's a typo, isn't it, Jennifer? That should be Ace loved the way her hair blew in the slight wind, and he found himself wishing that Alice's dress was tighter. It was fitted at the top, but flared out a bit around her hips, hiding all the good stuff from his view. He loved her ass the best, and he longed to grab it in his hands as he had before. He followed, imagining what her ass would look like if he flipped her dress. Yeah. Alice doesn't have any panties on, by the way. They were ripped off as she was coming down the rabbit hole. It's obvious you're in love with her. The red fairy had caught up to him and was flying just above the ground instead of walking. She annoyed Ace beyond measure, and he wanted to slap her to the ground like a common housefly. I'm not, Ace hissed at the red fairy, no longer able to hide his disdain. Alice skipped ahead on the path as she sang to herself. He caught up with her, leaving the red fairy behind. Alice, he asked. She seemed blissfully unaware of how much he wanted to kiss her. Her lips were plump and the same color as her other lips. He remembered how sweet her pussy had tasted the last and only time they made love. He had only been trying to conquer her sexually at that time. He hadn't thought about the possibility of actually falling for her. It was almost impossible to imagine since he had never fallen in love with anyone before. A knave like himself didn't have time for love or any other fancy feelings. He was supposed to be brave, strong, and impenetrable. You look beautiful as ever, he told her, the words coming to him from his heart. Although there was a strong desire to fuck her that kept worming its way to the surface, he tried to fight back his urges, knowing that she was innocent and that he shouldn't approach her with such obvious lasciviousness. Thank you, Ace. You're welcome. What do you say we ditch the fairy and find a place where we can be alone? His hand rested on her upper arm, and she instantly pulled it away with disapproval. Was he flirting with her? She couldn't tell. No one in her real life had ever flirted with her, and she couldn't exactly trust the happenings in Wonderland. They all seemed skewed ridiculously one way or another. I think that would be very rude to the red fairy. She's come all this way with you only to be abandoned. We could find her again when we're done. I just need to kiss you again, Alice. I need to feel you once more. Oh, Lord, Jackie's in the house. Help us all. He leaned down, bending his long, thin body to meet hers. She was so tiny and he was so tall. It was an odd pairing, and yet the heat between them was intense. Alice could feel his breath on her neck as he playfully kissed her there. She made a noise of contentment. Shh. We mustn't make any noise. You know how the wraths get. Mome wraths get. I don't know what that is. I'll bet they get frustrated without having any hands. Alice speculated, thinking of the tiny bipedal creatures that each had a pair of little legs but no arms. We are near Tulgey Wood, and I would love to show you a special spot that I found recently where I go to think. You like to think, don't you? Not particularly, Alice blurted without thinking. Then what do you like to do? I enjoy a good book. I'm not much for reading, but perhaps if you read me a book, I would be more inclined to enjoy it. Okay, let's find a place to be alone, but do tell the Red Fairy where we're going so she doesn't worry about us, Alice said practically. I keep picking up to see who else joining us, so. Alrighty. Ace scoured the path for the Red Fairy, looking through the foliage for anything red. Red Fairy? Kaya? Where are you? He turned back toward Alice. She smiled stupidly at him, and he enjoyed the way her smile lit up her face. I can't seem to find her anywhere to tell her. It looks like we're all alone. I like when we're alone. Alice gave Ace a tiny wink filled with naughtiness. The sultry smile she followed it with made his cock instantly stand at attention. Ace leaned down and kissed Alice again. This time she allowed him to fully kiss her, reveling in the feeling she was experiencing. She had never been connected with a man this way before, but she imagined that what she was feeling for Ace was normal for someone who was enjoying his or her first lover. A thought of Charles fluttered through her head. Why was she thinking about him at a time like this? Ace's tongue was in her mouth, but Alice wasn't alarmed. He had done this before the last time. She wasn't sure if she could really call it making love since she wasn't sure if she was really in love with Ace or not. She found she had been horny and curious, and God knows her curiosity tended to land her in trouble. She didn't want to be in trouble, but she couldn't resist the way Ace's hands rubbed her back and moved their way down to her butt. He gave each ass cheek a firm squeeze, and she found herself crying out. Ace, that feels so good, she cooed. I want you to feel good, he assured her. His voice was deep and a bit raspy. She loved the way it sounded. She had heard that voice in her dreams and fantasies ever since the last time they had been together. It had been her first time, and it had been absolutely perfect. Flashbacks of their first tryst filled her head as she devoured the sensations of the second time. Her body responded to his, moving to meet his touch. His eyes filled with an intensity that scared her. Was this how it was supposed to be? She didn't know. Are we going to have sex again? Alice asked, somewhat spoiling the moment. Ace paused and smiled at her. Alice, that is entirely up to you. I would adore another chance to show you how wonderful sex can be. I really think I'd like to do it again, she said thoughtfully. I have thought about it a lot back in my world. I've touched myself while I thought about it, and I've wanted to do it again so much. Her cheeks flushed. Then let me help you, my dear. He whisked her back into his arms and kissed her deeply. Follow me. He led her down a path to Tulgey Wood, and he showed her the special spot that he wanted her to see. She was surprised when he stopped at a wide river that she had seen many other times she had come to Wonderland, only this time it was different. This is the magic river, Ace explained. It will make everything clear to you. The dark waters were dangerous and menacing. Alice couldn't swim, and the thought of that river was too much. Nothing looks very clear. You're the one that created this river, the first time you came here with your tears. I think it's beautiful, and whenever I come here, I think of you. You do? Yes, Alice. I care about you so much. I care about you too. She stumbled over her words, lost in Ace's dark eyes. Was this what love felt like? She didn't know. Chapter 9, Alice's Second Time. What's wrong? Ace asked between kisses. Alice's body tightened up, and he knew that she was scared or perhaps overthinking things. Normally, he would have ignored this, but he felt obligated to make Alice's first time special. He knew that she didn't have a lot of experience sexually. It was hard for Ace to believe since Alice was breathtakingly beautiful and full of life. He was shocked that he was the one that she had chosen to deflower her. Ace wrapped his arms around her, pulling her even closer. He unzipped her dress and helped her out of it until it was in a discarded pile on the floor of the woods. Alice was passive, allowing him to do as he wished. He took off his own coat and laid it on the ground so that Alice would have a place to lie on. He helped her out of her shoes and pulled off her bra until she was delightfully naked. My favorite way to be. He was shocked that she wasn't wearing panties, but he didn't ask her about it. He had never seen a girl as gorgeous as Alice, and what made her even more beautiful was the fact that she had no idea how gorgeous she actually was. She was so perfect, her pale skin standing out against the dark backdrop of the forest. Ace? Yes, Alice. Do you believe in love? She asked, her question innocent. It would have been annoying to Ace if it had come from any other girl. Instead, he found it cute that Alice was asking, and there was a part of him that hoped he would be able to show her what love truly was. He wanted to tell her all that he was feeling, but it was too soon to share such intimacies, and so instead he tried to answer her question in such a way that he didn't reveal his true feelings. I believe that people have the capacity to trust and to love. What about you? Do you have the capacity to love? She asked, her eyes glistening with tears of emotion he wished wasn't there. It was so much easier to forget about love and just fuck. Hallelujah, yes it is. What was it about this girl that made him want to be better than he was? He held her tightly, pulling her as close as he could without crushing her. He kissed her neck and then her cheeks. He planted a slow, loving kiss on her lips, and she moaned softly into his mouth. I could fall for a girl like you, he told her honestly. As soon as he said it, he regretted it. He was giving her too much power, and when she clearly didn't know what to do with it. You could? She smiled slyly, enjoying her new power as a sexual being. She was no longer a virgin and about to have sex for the second time. The first time had been short and sweet. Ace had struggled to push his cock into her tight virginal pussy. She had screamed in pain, and he had kissed it all better for her. He had come too quickly that first time, and this had been uncharacteristic of him. Luckily, Alice didn't have anything to compare it to. I could definitely fall for you, Alice. The waver in his voice gave him away. He knew too much about his feelings, but he found he couldn't close himself off from them. He kissed her again, feeling her soul merge with his. She was so vulnerable, her chin quivering a bit with desire as she lifted her head to meet his mouth in another urgent kiss. Her hands were all over him, and she moaned softly. I am so very naked, she commented, looking down at on herself. She had never given much thought to her body. She wasn't like other girls that were obsessed with their appearance and always evaluating and overanalyzing themselves. Living with mental illness had taken that element away from her. She'd always been slightly detached from her body, existing more in her mind than anywhere else. You're beautiful. You have such a lovely body. You are slender in the right places and curved in the right ones as well. Your breasts are bigger than I imagined. I can't believe you hide it under dresses the way you do. You should show it off more, Alice. I should? You should definitely show your body to me more often. His mouth covered hers, and they feverishly kissed until his cock was nice and hard and pushing against the opening of her pussy. He wondered how wet she was, and when he tried pushing into her, he found that she was very, very wet for him. This only made him harder, and he struggled to get his cock inside of her. He paused for a moment, waiting for his cock to soften enough to get it into her. Her pussy was so fucking taut. It was an amazing pussy, and the thought that he had been the first and only one inside of her pleased him in a way he hadn't realized it would. He was her first. He would always be special to her. He didn't know why he cared so much about being special to her, but he did. I'll show it to you whenever you want. Her voice was teasing and sensual. He liked seeing this new side of Alice. Alice thought she saw something out of the corner of her eye, something red and bright like a flashing light, or like a light flashing. It flashed again and then it was gone. She turned back to Ace and let him continue to kiss her. She welcomed his cock as it pushed into her, ripping her flesh from its brutal force. Sex was so much crazier than she had imagined it would be. She was a bit sore, but she didn't want Ace to stop. She wanted to feel the pleasure she had experienced the first time they had done it. She was ready for it this time, no longer afraid. She opened her legs further and threw her head back to let Ace know that she was his. She belonged to him and nothing could separate them. His cock pressed into her until something finally gave way. She could feel the slick smoothness of her own wetness as his cock finally entered her depths. Fuck, you're so tight, Alice. You're so big. Am I too big? I can put some magic potion on it and shrink it a bit for if you like. He joked. There was no way he'd actually do that. No, 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 don't do that, Alice cried. I think I'm just going to keep going. Just try and relax, beautiful, Ace coached. Alice had never been called beautiful in quite the way Ace had just done. She beamed, smiling brightly at him before his mouth covered hers once again. She could feel the intensity of his feelings for her, and it almost scared her. There was this tiny part inside of her that still needed to be loved, that ached for him to love her. She had always wanted to be special to someone or part of something bigger than her. She wanted to be a part of a couple and have a real boyfriend or partner. She didn't want just sex. She wanted romance and love and all the trimmings. She saw them all as they flashed before her eyes, the sex becoming a reverie for everything she had ever wanted in a man. She hadn't realized that he was what she wanted until that moment. She now understood the ache inside of her that she had nursed for so long without knowing what it was. It was her budding sexuality, opening slowly like a tender flower and greeting the universe for the first time. This was a whole new chasm of pleasure that she hadn't fathomed. Alice let him fuck her harder and faster to her delight. She began to come. She let the pleasure work its way through her body, moving from her pussy and down her legs. She could feel it in her toes, and then it was suddenly everywhere. She couldn't stop screaming, her body feeling out of control. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she almost lost her ability to think. She was open to Ace completely, giving him full access to the deepest depths of her. She let out a scream that was louder than all the others and then emitted a guttural growl that Alice had never heard a human girl make. She sounded like an animal, and part of her was a bit embarrassed that Ace had heard that noise come out of her. Alice couldn't stop screaming as her pussy spasmed out of control. She couldn't control herself as she shook with orgasmic contractions. Oh, that's him. I'm gonna come, baby. Ace screamed, and Alice knew that she should stop him from coming in her pussy. She knew she could get pregnant, and here in Wonderland, a pregnancy would probably get pretty weird. Pull out, she screamed. He pulled his dick from her pussy and squirted his cum all over her body, most of it hitting her face. It was obvious from the amount of he ejaculated that it had been a while since Ace last had sex, but Alice didn't know that. There was so much cum, but Alice had no way of telling you if that was a normal amount or if it was excessive. There was a light flashing again, this time brighter. It blinded Alice for a moment, and she shifted her arm to shield her eyes. It was hard to ignore. Ace turned toward the light, his cock still dripping cum. He moved his torso so he was blocking the light from Alice's eyes. "Are you okay, baby?" he asked Alice urgently. "Are you okay, baby?" A female voice mocked Ace's. Alice recognized the voice of the Red Fairy. She had found them. "Red Fairy, it's me, Alice." "I know who you are, you nitwit," Red Fairy screamed at Alice. "Why is she so mad?" Alice screamed at Ace. "Did someone say mad?" A voice came out of the woods. Alice recognized this voice as well. It was the voice of the Cheshire Cat, an old and dear friend. He began to magically appear out of nowhere, his mischievous smile appearing first, and then the light and dark purple stripes that made up his coloring. His facial features slowly materialized until finally Alice could see the glowing force behind his eyes. He was completely insane, just like Alice. That was why they got along so well. Like recognized like. "Cheshire Cat!" Alice screamed and then scrambled for her clothes, trying to cover up her nakedness. "Oh, don't bother covering up. We're all voyeurs here, aren't we?" The cat laughed. "Besides, your face is covered in spunk." His paw reached toward her face, and he took a bit on his finger like someone would do with a bit of frosting before popping it into his mouth. He made a face that he indicated it wasn't bad tasting. "Don't be a pervert. That is so inappropriate," Alice chided, wagging her finger at him the way a headmistress would. "Don't be a pervert," the Red Fairy screamed too. Ace turned toward her, and they exchanged a look that Alice couldn't quite read. She hoped that it wasn't about her. "It's not perversion if the subject enjoys the attention." Cheshire Cat did a backflip in the air, his tail covering most of his body as he hovered gracefully at Alice's eye level. She giggled with delight. She had always loved his tricks. She quickly put her clothes on, but was a bit disgusted that the cat's eyes were fixed on her face. Alice was relatively certain the cat wanted to lick her face. Why were cats so perverted anyway? She was facing away from him when he disappeared and then reappeared right in between her legs, his eyes looking directly up at her crotch. "Get out of my junk!" Alice screamed at him. Ace lunged at the cat, who promptly disappeared. Ace fell forward right in between Alice's legs. "Well, this is awkward," Ace said lightheartedly. "It's okay if he looks," Alice explained to no one in particular. "Where's the white rabbit?" Red Fairy asked Cheshire Cat. "He went that way." The cat pointed in a direction with his paw. "This way?" Alice pointed. "No, wait. Maybe it was that way." He pointed in a different direction. "Ugh," the Red Fairy huffed. "What business do you have with the white rabbit?" she asked Alice. "He's always the one that escorts me to the royal palace and also in and out of Wonderland. He is so kind as to help me, don't you think? Alice gasped naively. Yeah, that's fucking wonderful. Wonderful as fuck. Why don't you take your semi-virginal pussy and get the fuck out of Wonderland once and for all? The red fairy screamed with fury. Alice was dumbfounded by the red fairy's behavior, but she never would have guessed that Kaya was capable of what she did next. Kaya's wings flapped intensely as her anger grew. Kaya is the red fairy. She flew straight up into the sky and began to shout an incantation. She clasped her hands together and then slowly moved them apart to reveal a hot flame burning between her palms. She began to stretch it and then push it back together until it took a spherical shape. Suddenly, the sky was brighter, highlighting the shadows of dusk with a small crimson fireball that the red fairy had created. Alice had never seen anything like this in Wonderland before. The red fairy had used some curse words that weren't very polite at all. Alice wondered why the fairy was acting the way that she was. The red fairy's fury rained down over Alice. The magic fireball that Kaya had been creating was small but full of energy and light. She spread her wings and flew further up into the air with a determination that Alice recognized as vengeance. She couldn't figure out what she had done to elicit such hatred from this fairy, but she fully recognized the danger she was in now. Take this, you little bitch! The red fairy opened her legs, revealing that she wasn't wearing panties under her tiny red dress. Alice gawked at her pussy as the fairy spread her legs for all to see. Alice knew she should have run, but instead she stood there stupidly, her eyes locked onto Kaya. Come on, Kaya, Ace said in a menacing tone. Why don't you come down from there and put the fireball away? I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I'm sick of this shit. I'm sick of what Wonderland has become. This twisted fantasy needs to come to an end. Someone needs to stop her. Kaya screamed, and the fireball was glowing in her hand, ready to be thrown at Ace and Alice. Kaya's arms snapped back. Don't do this. Oh, no! Ace screamed and lunged toward Alice, trying to shield her from whatever was about to happen. The Cheshire cat had long disappeared, but he was still lurking, watching the situation unfold. He needed to make sure that Alice was safe in the end. Kaya took the fireball and shoved the whole thing into her pussy. Okay, I didn't read that before. Alice gasped in fear. She couldn't believe that anyone could force a fireball into their pussy like that. Ace was suddenly on top of her, and she was falling to the ground underneath him. Alice turned her head and couldn't believe what she saw. Just remember, I'm thinking of you, Ace, the red fairy cried as she rubbed her clit, the fireball still inside of her. Ace was 1 part disgusted and 2 parts curious about what Kaya was doing. Oh, Ace, the red fairy screamed as she diddled her pussy with her fingers until she was about to come. The red fairy's pussy erupted in giant squirting orgasm. A wall of water 4 meters high lit Ace and Alice, leaving them swimming for their lives against the force. There was so much water that it rivaled the Sea of Tears incident when Alice had first arrived in Wonderland and cried so much that it flooded almost everything. Alice was washed away, even as Ace tried his best to catch her and rein her in. Ace screamed as the strong current ripped Alice from his hands, the force of the water pulling her quickly away. He knew Kaya would pull something like this. Not only was she jealous of Alice, but she hated her as much as the queen. The wave was so strong that even Ace was knocked off his feet, but he easily floated on the surface of the water until the wave dissipated. He passed many interesting Wonderland creatures that had been disrupted by the red fairy's tidal wave, and he tried not to think about where all this water had come from as he finally found his footing. Alice, it's Ace. Where are you, Alice? Come back to me, Alice, he called desperately into the night. He would search for her. He would send out scouts to find her. He couldn't lose Alice now. Too much was riding on her. Whew. All right, give me a drink. Yes, that has vodka in it. Okay, chapter 11. Y'all ready for this? The great caterpillar. Ace! Ace! Alice called. She was alone. She couldn't find him and she wasn't sure what to do. Red Fairy! She called for good measure. There was no answer. She had never seen anything like what she had just seen in Wonderland before. It had been like a giant hand had ripped through the sky and landed right on top of Ace, stealing him from the universe. Alice shivered, allowing the thoughts about what had just happened to fill her head. She relived each moment she had had with Ace, remembering the way he had made love to her, and she was almost certain that she was in love with him. Only he hadn't said it the way that she had, and she wondered why Ace was holding back. Maybe he didn't love her. Maybe he was just using her for sex, and that was all it meant to him. Okay, she just got squirted on by a fairy who shoved a fireball up her pussy, and she's thinking, why doesn't he love her? Oh my gosh. This is good. This is hilarious. This is good. Maybe he was just using her for sex and that was all it meant to him. For her, the sex was much more than just sex. It was everything. It was the connection that she had been searching for her whole life. And yet, Ace seemed to be obvious to her emotions. She knew he was much more experienced than she was, and she also knew that feelings of love weren't something that happened for every person each time they had sex. She had to be realistic. Ace was probably just using her, and something about that seemed wrong to her. But there was another part of her that was excited about it. Ace was now a woman. Alice was now a woman, and she assumed her new powers as a woman were sexual in nature and she could use them to somehow control men. She simply had to learn how. She was motivated now, knowing that if she could get back home to Charles and the mental hospital, she could ask him about these things. Maybe Charles could help her meet with Ace. She began to walk faster, trying to get through Wonderland quickly, to get home. She knew she had to get to the royal palace. The gateway back home was there. She hurried along, working her way toward the garden. The tidal wave Kaya had created had carried her closer to her destination. Maybe the red fairy had actually been trying to help her. It had been ages since she'd visited the garden, and she wondered if all the flowers would notice that she had been deflowered recently. She hoped that they could tell and that her experiences somehow made her look different. Why does everything look so big? She asked as she approached the pathway. She realized that something had turned her small, although she wasn't sure why. Could sex do that? Surely in real life it couldn't. But in Wonderland, anything was possible. The grass and the flowers towered over her, and she remembered coming here the first time she had been to Wonderland when she was just a girl. She had been small then as well, and she was overjoyed. She would get to sing with the flowers again. She skipped ahead with delight until she found herself surrounded by an iris, pansies, daisies, tulips, bluebonnets, morning glories, daffodils, tiger lilies, yellow daisies, sweet peas, lilacs, violets, sunflowers, a calla lily, a lily of the valley, a rose, and a tiny rosebud. Everything was freakishly the same as when she was a child, but how could that be when she was now 18 years old? Hello, everyone. It's me, Alice. Do you remember me? She ran into the center of the garden and twirled around, trying to see each and every flower. The flowers all had cute little faces on them and were sentient beings, despite the fact that they were plants. In Wonderland, plants weren't that different from humans. They had thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and they liked expressing them. Who the hell is that? The rose asked. I never seen her a day in my life. Cedar! How can you not know me? I'm Alice. I came here when I was a little girl. Don't you remember? How would we remember you when you have no idea who you are? We sang together on a golden afternoon. Remember? She began to sing the song that they sang together the last time she was here. Oh, you must mean our great, 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 great grandmothers, the daisy said with a haughty laugh. Well, we think she smells weird. A clump of pansies chorused as if they were one person. Oh, I do apologize. I fell into some water that wasn't exactly water. Alice tried to explain, but couldn't do so and still mind her manners. Ew! You stink like nasty sewer pussy, a dandelion said cruelly. Get out of here. Yeah, get out of here, they chorused. This wasn't quite unlike the last time she was here, and they were extremely rude to her, except this time she didn't have to sing, and she appreciated that. She kept walking, hoping to find that the caterpillar was somehow still alive. She walked through the blades of grass, trying to retrace her steps when she saw smoke. The caterpillar! She cried with delight. She ran toward the smoke, barely able to contain her excitement. As she got closer, she could hear him singing a song about a pack of cards. She rounded a blade of grass, and there he was, puffing on something, but it wasn't the hookah he had smoked from when Alice was a girl. Instead, he had a more modern vaporizer, and Alice recognized the smell of marijuana because her older brothers used to sometimes. Caterpillar, it's me, Alice, she called. Who are you? He asked, enunciating his words and blowing a large cloud of smoke right in her face. Well, he hadn't changed much. He still blew smoke in her face and asked who she was, except she didn't remember his hands being yellow and she thought he might have been darker in color. I'm Alice. Don't you remember? Remember? No, I've never seen you before. He paused to take a giant inhale from the vaporizer. Yes, don't you remember? I come here when I was a younger girl and you screamed at me and blew smoke in my face. You told me about the mushrooms. What did I say about them? That one side would make me grow larger and the other would make me grow smaller. Alice remembered, and then you turned into a... Oh, you must mean my great, 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 great grandfather. Caterpillars don't live that long, he shrugged. We become butterflies. Oh, darn. She smoothed her dress down and tried to hide her tears. It's just, I was hoping he could help me with something. Help you with what? The caterpillar's eyes drooped, and Alice noticed the red capillaries that spread like highways across the whites of his eyes. He was extremely stoned. His eyes puffy and narrowed into slits. His cheeks were red, and his eyes were glazed over as if he was struggling to comprehend why such a tiny girl would be bothering him. He took another hit as he waited for Alice to explain. Well, Alice began, I'm having a problem with sex. The caterpillar choked on a puff of smoke, and it took him a moment to regain his composure. Young lady, explain yourself. I need help with sex. You see, I've had it twice now, and I think I might be in love, but I just don't know. Maybe everyone who has sex thinks they are in love with the first person they sleep with? So you had sex with the same bloke twice? The caterpillar asked. Yes, the ace of spades. The playing card? Yes, well, he's very flexible, but also sturdy. He's very handsome. Oh, I know. Word travels fast around here about him. Those stupid flowers can't ever keep their petals closed. Look, maybe I need to be the one to tell you this. Tell me what? The ace of spades has definitely been through the deck. Whatever does that mean? It means that you've been shuffled into his sex life in between all the other women in his deck. The caterpillar sucked in a huge hit and then blew it out right up Alice's nose. I hope you like sativa, he laughed. What? Alice was stunned. She hadn't thought about Ace's sex life at all. She didn't know why she hadn't wondered, but it simply hadn't occurred to her. She hadn't had any other partners, and maybe she had just assumed or failed to examine the situation for what it was. But now, as she thought about it, she knew the caterpillar was telling the truth. Alice thought about the red fairy and how she had acted. Alice wondered if Kaya and Ace had done it, and the thought disgusted her. For the first time, Alice knew jealousy. She needed to get back to Ace and ask him about this. I feel so strange, Alice remarked. Maybe you're in love or you wouldn't care who else was in his deck. I beg your pardon, Alice asked, getting annoyed. She was angry and she didn't know why. Let me explain. When you walk past two flowers, does it bother you that they grow together? No. Well, then, why does it bother you if Ace grows with someone else? Or many someone else's? I don't know, she screamed. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. The caterpillar screamed. His eyes suddenly rolled back in his head and his body began to shake. It's time, Alice. Time for you to face your fears. It's not really Ace you love. This is Wonderland. Real love is in the real world. The world suddenly became dark, as if there were a hole in the sky. Alice wondered if she really had created Wonderland with her mind. Maybe none of this was real, like everyone in the real world tried to tell her. The sky was black, and it seemed like the world was closing in around her. Caterpillar, help me, she screamed, but he couldn't. Good luck, Alice, he called to her, and then she was surrounded in darkness. What a perfect place to stop. What you guys think? Yeah, I gotta finish reading this. What you guys think? Good? Not so good? Thank you, Jenny. Jackie, you're too much, as Nina would say. Alrighty. Oh, did I really? I look up every now and then and I read it the way that that authors intended for it to sound out. Don't always, but apparently. Yeah, it's a really good story, y'all. And you really need to start from the beginning because it kind of fills in a bunch of blanks. But I figured I could read those three and it would be perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, that's it for this week. But I would like those that have not been following, those that don't know about it, Yeah, that's the best place to put it. Those that don't know about it, on next Saturday from 10 to 2 Eastern Time, we will be having a party in the Book Nook. I will be celebrating 1 year anniversary of my book blog in the Book Nook. So I need you guys to show up. I've got lots and lots of visitors, and I have a feeling after today's conversation, things are liable to get wild and crazy. And if I still have a group left when the day is over with, I will be lucky. Alrighty, so everybody just have a good weekend. Be safe, be smart. Pebbles, you better, your little ass better be there. And just be smart out there this weekend. Most of the country, I think, has got pretty weather. So let's just be smart about it. Get outside. Keep your social distancing, especially if you don't want to wear a mask. Because I know everybody's fussing about the mask, but a mask is better than a ventilator or 6 feet of dirt. So think about that. So, all righty, everybody. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Happy reading.